Japanese Breakfast is Michelle Zauner, born in Korea and raised in Eugene, Oregon. The Philadelphia artist engages the listener with tasteful experimentation and deeply intimate indie rock. Michelle further demonstrates her prowess of introspection with her New York Times best-selling book, Crying in H Mart, where she reflects on her place in American Korean culture. You're tuned into Roots to Grooves.
What's up, everybody? It's Roots to Grooves. I'm Jesse Quigley. Sitting across from me is Jay Purcell. You know that means it's Roots to Grooves.
Hello, everybody. Welcome along.
What up, Jay?
Another edition. Officially summer in Seattle.
It's going to be hot this weekend, I hear.
Yeah, which also means pollen, and I'm going to be sneezing on the microphone during this episode.
It's rough.
Yeah.
We'll take it, though, with this nice weather.
Exactly.
It's a beautiful day in Seattle, and we're happy to be here talking about Japanese breakfast. Who knows about them?
Yeah.
Ever heard of them?
I have heard of them, and realized I hadn't heard the music, because I thought that there was something else completely. I thought it was more electro soul. It's a classic thing I do where I just like mix up two different artists, take the name from one and the sound of another and put them together.
But with conviction in your head, you're like, oh, I totally know what that group is about.
I was like, yeah, it was kind of, I've heard some stuff. And then I was like thinking about, I think I was actually thinking about, damn it, what are they called? See, I don't even remember their name. Not Toki Monster, that's something else. There's like Little Dragon.
Oh, okay.
I was taking the music of Little Dragon and associating it with the name of Japanese breakfast.
I got you.
That's what I was doing. Yeah.
A little cross-contamination there. But we're here to clean it up.
Right.
We're talking about Japanese breakfast. It's an alternative pop band, kind of dream pop, indie pop, indie rock band. It's a young female vocalist singer. She's been a musician for like the past 10 or 15 years, and she was in another band, and she started this band as a side project. For her own artistic purposes, started doing it, got signed, and it turned into a bigger and bigger project, to the point where it's been going and growing for 10 years. And she's been, she's done a lot of cool stuff. Her latest album, Jubilees, it has a Best Alternative Music Album. It was nominated for that. It was nominated Best New Artist. It was also nominated for her 64th Annual Grammy Awards. Yeah. So she's doing big things, making progress.
Michelle Zauner as well. I think we said her name. Yeah.
No, my bad. I'm sorry.
That's her name.
But yes, of course.
Who is Japanese breakfast? So not really a band, more of they're a band in sense of when they go live and tour, and that there's like about 6 people on stage now at this point. They had a 3-piece to start with, but it is primarily Michelle's project. She's the singer, songwriter.
100%. And furthermore, she's an artist. She's a writer.
Yeah.
She directs a lot of her music videos.
Yeah.
And I don't know if she's an actor too. What else does she do?
She hasn't acted well, but I did see her recently on the season finale of Saturday Night Live. Okay. She was the musical artist on there. She performed 2 tracks. Cool. She also appeared in a few skits.
Cool.
Acting wise.
I did not come across that. I should have checked that out.
Yeah. Before you even mentioned doing this band as a pick on Roots to Grooves, I'd seen that Saturday Night Live episode recently. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So it's all coming together.
It's coming together.
The synchronicities are leading the way.
Yeah.
The universe is telling us we're on the right path.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is a cool project. I don't know how I came across Japanese breakfast, just on the random listening train in the middle of the night or in the car or something, and the name has popped up multiple times.
Yeah.
On my playlist and stuff, so I got into checking it out, and it was pretty good stuff. So
yeah, unlike for me, I haven't come across the music like on Spotify or YouTube, but I have come across people talking about Japanese breakfast on like the web, like on Facebook and that. I've seen the name come up quite often as like a sort of indie act that people are really into.
Right. Yeah. That's nail on the head. It's an indie act that people are really into, and she just creates a really strong vibe.
Yeah.
That people are drawn to, and just kind of fall into this, indie pop dreamy world. She just has like a kind of a really nice soft voice that just kind of soars over these, jingling melodies of the, arpeggiated guitars and, simple drum beats and, just, thumping grooving bass. And I mean, yeah, it's pretty good stuff. I like her. She's kind of following this narrative as far as genre. Kind of her earlier stuff sounds a little more indie, a little more rocky, and she's going a little bit more towards pop, I would say, on the last album.
Yeah.
Even though she's still like it's still pretty kind of not poppy, and it is kind of weird still, and it has her own brand over it, of course.
It's not hooky, like it's because a lot of pop can have like that repetitive chorus that's like hooky.
Right.
She doesn't really have that kind of thing going on.
But as far as like the production, it sounds cleaner and a little poppier, I would say.
Yeah.
So yeah, 100%. Yeah, she's Korean American. Grew up in Oregon, Eugene, Oregon. And with that, that's all I got for overview.
Yeah, and we started out the proceedings tonight with the first track from her second album, Diving Woman, which is a really cool track. But I'm going to spin a little bit now from a track that you picked from her debut official album, Psycho Pomp.
Nice.
This one's Everybody Wants to Love You. Everybody Wants to Love You from Japanese Breakfast here on Roasted Grooves with me, Jay Purcell, and Jesse Quigley.
Yeah, that's me.
Japanese Breakfast, who we're talking about on this episode. Yes.
Yeah, so good stuff. Let's get into a little bit of early life. Let's go hop in our time machine. Let's take us back to 1989 in Seoul, South Korea. It's a beautiful day. It's overcast and very misty in the air. Just got done raining.
You don't know any of this.
No, I'm just setting the scene.
Setting a fictional scene.
Just using our imagination.
Of the place of birth of Michelle Zauner, who is Japanese Breakfast.
Yes.
Yeah, her mum's Korean. Her dad is Jewish American. And she was born in Seoul. But moved to Eugene, Oregon when she was just 9 months old.
An infant.
Yeah. Her dad, so a lot of this is interesting. I think I was wanting to mention it later, but she did come out of a book, Crying in H Mart. And actually, that's something else I should say. That's another reason that I've heard of her recently, because I saw, there was a New York Times article about this book, and I didn't make the connection at all until I started researching today. I was like, oh, she wrote that? Okay,
nice.
Because I've seen the articles out there and I bookmarked it to read it.
Oh, very cool.
I went back and read the article, and yeah, so it kind of attaches to her early years because that book is really about her relationship with her mother, right? And it's kind of framing it in, I haven't read the book, but from what I hear is framing it in kind of food and memory and her relationship with her mother and growing up as an Asian American in America.
Yeah, kind of touching on her cultural background as a Korean woman.
Yeah, and it seems like like I haven't read the book. Obviously, I wish I kind of had the time to do that before doing the show, because we might have a little bit more insight into her early years. Because from what I gather, though, it sounds like she maybe didn't have like she maybe had a bit of a rocky time growing up. It sounds like in Eugene, Oregon. Like from what she did kind of convey in the book, her relationship with her mother is, she felt that like a lot of other kids had maybe parents that are more doting on their children, more supportive. And she said her mother was very much kind of like, I think she like gave an example, was like, if you lose a job, the parent is like, oh, I'm sorry that happened. There's always another opportunity kind of thing. And she said her mother would be like, why? What did you do? Kind of thing. Mm-hmm. and I think she said very, like, just growing up, like her mother was very kind of harsh and strict with criticism and stuff like that, and not supportive of creative career or work. Michelle said mostly because her mother hadn't seen or experienced anyone in her life that's been successful with that. Mm-hmm. And Michelle didn't go into detail, but she said her mother did have like some kind of creative thing within her, but she suppressed it and never explored it, kind of thing. So there's all that sort of going on. And
Right.
Her dad, I think she's estranged from now, but he is mentioned in the book as well. And she said that the main thing he got upset about was not about everything else that he wrote about her, but the fact that she got a fact wrong, which is that she mentioned that he used to sell used cars to the military, and apparently he was upset about that because it wasn't used cars, it was new cars to them. So yeah, it seems like it was a bit of a, I think it seems like from what Michelle's talked about that she maybe would have wanted a more loving, supportive kind of upbringing, and the way she's sort of conveying it is it wasn't that way, and it's very sort of hard for her. But I think on the other hand, she says that's kind of, on her reflection, made her who she is now. So
right,
obviously. But
one of those interesting lessons, like you didn't have the best background or something, your ideal childhood or whatever, but you also wouldn't go back and change it because that's what caused you to be who you are today. So very interesting situation. Life is weird. Mm-hmm. And then I don't know where to go first. Let me just, she's going through her childhood. She attended Bryn Mawr College.
Mm-hmm. In Philadelphia, is that right?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Yeah, and eventually we'll touch on it a little bit later, but I think she got like a job in healthcare. So I think she was going to school for some type of nursing or hospitality, healthcare, or it might have been like health insurance even.
Oh wow. Okay.
Okay, but anyway, I'm not sure, but she went to college.
Yeah.
I know before she started Japanese Breakfast, she was in another band, and she was in a few bands as far as I know, a few different indie rock bands.
Yeah.
Until forming the group Little Big League, and this was around 2011.
Right. Yeah.
And so so she like formed that group with a couple other people, and they did their thing, and they have they still have listeners, they still have a following and an audience.
Mm-hmm. Let's play a little bit of Little Big League.
Jay does have a track loaded up for us.
Yeah, because they did release 2 albums. They're on Spotify. And which track is this? I picked out the last track from their first album. Never have I ever walked away when the time was something. I don't know. This is cut off on the screen here.
It's a long name.
It's a long name, yeah.
In the cold hard light of dawn, are you happy with what you've become? Indoors from room to room, are you guilty? And the tears, they came and went, when it came through, came and went. While the man you made it fit, I was guilty.
That was just a snippet there of Little Big League.
Nice.
Michelle Zauner's very first sort of album, band album. And the actual title for that is Never Have I Walked Away When the Time Was Right. It was too long for Spotify to actually list the entire name on Spotify, which is crazy.
That is crazy.
And yeah, it came out in 2013. It's fairly decent like rock album. I would recommend going and listen to just that album. And I think maybe that's why they might have listeners now. There's a lot of like fans of Japanese Breakfast are going back and for more material, they're listening to this because she was like the front singer, wrote all the lyrics.
Yeah, and I didn't have a chance to listen to Little Big League.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you brought that to the table for us all today.
Yeah.
But you can, just based off that, it sounds not too dissimilar to Japanese Breakfast.
Yeah.
You know, generally it sounds a little bit more rocky.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more,
I think
garagey.
the difference that Michelle talked about was that musically was that band, I think it was a 4-piece, and a lot of the other members came from like the punk, East Coast punk sort of scene, or listening, growing up listening to that sort of music. Whereas she characterized herself as coming more from the Pacific Northwest, grunge, rock and pop sort of mentality. And so when it came time to do her own music, she said, I think with this band, Little Big League, is they wrote a lot of the material as a band, like jamming and then creating songs out of that. And with the intention of like knowing that they were going to play it live. So when she did approach to her own music, she was not approaching it to play live at all. And we can talk a little bit more about that in a bit. But and so therefore, she could make it a little bit poppier, add synths, add instruments that she knew, because she's like, I'm never going to play this live, so I can add whatever I want,
right?
Like make this my own. So musically, like
a little bit more creative freedom.
Yeah,
doing everything to serve the song, not worried about the live show.
Yeah, and it's funny, like, because to me, listening to Little Big League, that album, and Psycho Pomp, there's not a drastic difference between her first solo album and that band's album, to me at least. So
no, I would agree.
Yeah, but
astute observation.
But yeah, I mean, her early years, she's well, rewinding a little again. She went to college right in Philadelphia. That's when she formed Little Big League.
Yeah. So it was like 2011. And then I got, if we're jumping to 2013, it was she moved back to Oregon. Yeah.
Well, so but before we say that, I want to say she said a little bit more about Little Big League being they did do a lot of touring and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, I glanced over that. I'm sorry,
but they didn't have any money and they weren't successful. So she said that they'd go out on the road for a month and then she'd come back to Philadelphia and then be fired from her job. Like she'd work like service jobs, like food restaurants,
okay,
that sort of stuff. And she said it was just a very hard lifestyle and being sort of disassociated from family and friends and going on the road, coming back and being poor, sleeping on friends' couches and stuff like that. And so what happened is she said she went back to Eugene, Oregon because her mum had cancer. And so she like quit her life in Philadelphia to go be with her mother when she was ill in Eugene, Oregon, right?
Yeah. No, thanks for filling in that gap there.
Yeah.
So that does bring us up to 2013. And yeah, her mom was diagnosed with cancer, so she moved back to help take care. And I think it was around during this time where she was messing around with music, and she had this idea to do like a 30-day, a month-long exercise practice where she writes a song every day.
Yeah.
And this is the material where the first Japanese Breakfast album came from.
Right.
Which is a cool exercise, and I've heard a lot of other artists do this from time to time.
Yeah.
Just like a nice way to just get something out of you, even if it's not the best perfect thing, just to extract some artistic ideas and then see what happens with it once it's out.
Yeah.
So she did that, and it was obviously a success, and she turned a bunch of those songs, probably not every single one, but a bunch of them, into that first debut album.
Yeah, a couple of them, I think. I think she did another after she finished that first project. I think she was like posting them to Tumblr is what.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you're right.
And she worked with a friend, Rachel Gagliardi. I have the name there. And then, yeah, after that, she did a similar project again with some other musicians and posted them to another Tumblr. This is back when Tumblr was a thing.
It was, yeah, Tumblr was hot. The early 2010s.
Yeah, I think if we can, let's see if they're still up. So I'm going to just look this up. She called it Rachel and Michelle Dujune.tumblr.com. It's still up there.
It's there.
It's there, and you can.
Jay's putting it up on the screen for us all right now.
Yeah, here we go. If you for video viewers, this
Nice.
is the website. It has an animated picture of a fried egg, jiggering back and forth.
Oh, very simple.
Let's just click into day 30. What do we have here? Oh, it goes to a SoundCloud. So there you go, Michelle. We just live on air. Quick fact here. If you go to soundcloud.com/Zauner Michelle, and you can check the show notes for the spelling.
Don't mind if I do.
She has a whole SoundCloud here with all of those tracks from that very first project. So deep cuts there.
Good stuff.
There you go.
Jay with the research.
Yeah.
So she's making this music, or just a bunch of body of work, a bunch of tracks that she does one per day. It ends up being the release called June from 2013. It's melodic, intimate, electric guitar, lo-fi, and yeah, I guess it was released on cassette by Ranch Records at this time,
Cool.
about 2013.
Yeah.
Yeah, what do we got from here?
So, yeah, she was still in Oregon and writing these songs. She did this. Yeah, so go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, was June? It wasn't Japanese Breakfast, or was that an EP?
What was that? What?
The album June. I thought that album was called June, or was that that ended up being Psychopomp?
No, June. Yeah, they called it June, but it never really officially came out. It was like released online, and then cassette tapes.
And then some of those tracks,
Yeah,
ended up being like demos for the Psychopomp.
I think only like 2, from what I gather, from what I heard somewhere. Yeah, because she was sort of like, she did all of these tracks, 30 tracks with Rachel for that album June, and then she did a separate similar project with a group of 3 other musicians.
I see.
And that one's called May 5 to 12 songs.tumblr.com. Again, that's Tumblr.
That's funny.
But like, I'm a little bit fuzzy on like the timeline and that, but I think what kind of ended up happening for the first album, Psychopomp, is that she got together with 2 other musicians, bass player Peter, who I think went on to be her husband,
Right.
and a drummer. And so they'd taken like a lot of her demos and did them live and then recorded them. And then she said she basically sat on it for 6 months because she didn't like it at all, like how it came together. And so she got together with this mixing engineer who now mixes all of her stuff. And I'm trying to find his name. I don't know if you have his name.
I do not.
George Elbrecht. She got together with him and they like replayed all these recordings that she did with those musicians and basically kind of monkeyed with it in the computer and stuff and slowed things down, sped things up, took drums out, added like other sort of electronic components kind of thing. And I think like it was that process that really got her excited about the music again. And that sort of process is what ended up coming together to be the first album, Psychopomp.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, from what I gather.
No, I like it. I like it.
Yeah.
By the way, Psychopomp, it means in Greek mythology, a guide of souls to the place of the dead, the spiritual guide of a living person's soul.
Well, yeah.
Just for kicks, so we're all on the same page.
And the album cover, I think, is photos of her mother, right? Like a composite.
Yeah, and so like I said, or like you said, I'm also a little fuzzy on the timeline because as far as I know, this album Psychopomp was released, and her mother got to experience that and subsequently shortly after her mother died of the cancer that we previously spoke about.
Yeah.
So I think she got to hear that album, but I also was reading that it was still the album, like lyrically was talking about what Zauner was going through with her mom at the time, because she was diagnosed and she was helping her through this process.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of the lyrics end up being, kind of that experience
Yeah.
put into words.
Yeah. Now, a lot of people have said, and she said it herself, she said, yeah, exactly that. That's kind of what the lyrics were about. And then people have kind of characterized this album as, compared to her later stuff, as like more sort of, somber or like sad kind of thing. But
Yeah, I've seen like dark or heavy-handed.
yeah, that as well. And it's interesting to me because I listen to these tracks and musically, I don't feel that, but lyrically, yeah, for sure. But musically, tonally, mood-wise, it doesn't feel heavy or dark or sad. It feels, because her voice is kind of like light and floating, to me it sounds wistful sort of thing.
Yeah,
It's
no, I
like,
100% agree.
yeah.
That's what drew me into the music. But that is cool how it's multi-layered.
Yeah.
How you can kind of groove to it and vibe to it, have it on, playing, and you like it, getting something out of it. But then dig a little deeper to read the lyrics, and it's much more poetic and dark.
Yeah.
So multi-layered, good stuff.
Yeah.
What else do I got on this album? It's raw, it's visceral, and yeah, I don't know. A lot of it, some of it was at least written within weeks of her mother's death.
Right. Yeah.
So very close to home kind of record.
Yeah.
Also was a successful debut record for Michelle.
Yeah. Should we play a track to?
I think we
another
got one.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Heft.
I wanna trim like Amish butter. I wanna move out of your way. I wanna find what's there in your stomach. If it's the same dark and it's too late, what if? It's the same dark, same dark, same dark. It's the same dark, same dark, same dark. Oh fuck it, oh fuck it. I spent the summer trying to be sweeter. I spent the summer staying in. I ran a mile, I'm on another. I spent my nights by hospital beds. What if? It's the same dark, same dark, same dark. What if?
by Japanese Breakfast from the debut album Psychopomp.
That's right. That's right.
And yeah, lyrically, you know, moving. You can hear what she's talking about in that song.
Yeah, it's good though. The music's good. It's almost kind of some of it reminds me of kind of like Drive-In or what?
It reminds me of a lot of things, but
yeah, I couldn't think of the name I was thinking of.
I mean, not vocally, but like Smashing Pumpkins musically, like that sort of reminds me of sort of 90s.
Yeah, I mean, it's
rock.
like a lighthearted grunge or alternative rock.
Yeah.
Like it's really chill, but you can hear some almost like kind of postmodern punk, post-punk vibes.
Yeah.
But it's good. I guess she wanted to put this record out and nobody wanted to put it out as far as labels go. She hit up a couple labels and nobody wanted to put it out.
Okay.
And eventually Yellow K put it out.
Okay.
So she eventually just found one that would. Even some of her friends' labels, she said, wouldn't put it out for some reason.
But then I don't know how the hype started then right around this, because she said at a certain point that they were getting a lot of, they did start to get courted by labels, but also booking agents. There was like kind of an attraction to like an interest in this music and getting her to get booked for shows and stuff like that, which I think eventually led to Mitski, right? She opened up for Mitski, which is one of her big breaks. Mitski, who we talked about on Roots to Grooves. Go check out that episode. Yeah, her music's great as well.
So as far as I know, right after Psychopomp is released, and then basically she was, some time passed, death of her mother, she still got that on her mind and stuff. It's like a really tough period for her. So I know she got a 9-to-5 job, and this was where I was kind of bringing up that healthcare job. I think it was some kind of health insurance job.
Oh, no, what I heard about the 9-to-5 job was she was working in an ad company. She was in New York at this time. She moved to New York, and she was selling ad space, basically.
Okay.
And I think what happened there is that she said she thought she was doing a really good job at this place, but they didn't think so, and they fired her. But her firing came right around the time when she got the label deal. And she was kind of like, I guess the music is meant to be then, kind of thing.
Right.
And also, I think, like, to backtrack a little bit, I said earlier, because of her experience with Little Big League and touring with no money and that kind of lifestyle sort of thing,
Right.
she kind of didn't want to do that again. She didn't want to tour. She didn't want to play out live. And
it
was the interest in this album that she was like, oh, okay, I guess we'll play this live sort of stuff. And it was kind of like, I think she was like, her mentality was like, oh, I'd given up on that side of the music thing, but now the opportunities are coming to me, so I guess I have another shot at it, kind of thing. I guess I'll take it.
Yeah. So to kind of like to piggyback on where the story you're telling, there's a couple bits of information I'm not sure where to connect the dots, but she went to South by Southwest and played a show.
Yeah, I think it's why they do like showcases down there or something like that. I don't know what that entails necessarily. I've heard mixed reviews. I've met musicians that have done it and said it's overhyped and it's not worth doing.
So is that something that you would sign up for, like kind of apply for? Be like, hey, I want to play here, and then they choose you, or
I think it works
get a
some
slot based on
way like that, yeah. And especially if you have a label working for you to do your bidding in terms of getting in there, I think that works that way as well. Right?
Yeah, that was kind of the point I was making, because I don't think she had a label until that point.
Okay,
and I read that she had gotten connected with a label and signed possibly that weekend, but because of that show, and she also got a booking agent.
Right.
What I was reading made it seem like it was like all kind of happening the same weekend at South by.
Oh. It's possible. I know that happens a lot now and there. There's a thing. It's kind of seen. I think we've talked a lot about a lot of artists that did that early on in their career, and it seemed to have helped. So I don't know. Maybe the person that was shitting on it didn't help work for them, so that's why they're bitter about it. But like,
maybe you're right. Yeah, that could be.
Yeah, but yeah. I mean, I've heard a lot about. You do go down there, you play the showcase, and that's how you get connected with these industry folks, sort of thing, seeing you play and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So in this interview, I mean, she was pretty stoked because it was kind of like a dream come true moment. Because like you were saying, am I done with music? Is it's not going to be my thing? And then like boom, I get this opportunity, and boom, I got a booking agent. I got signed. They want me to tour. They want an album, and it's like, wow, what a cool little experience. And it was,
Yeah.
you know, for all intents and purposes,
Yeah.
you know, she was ready for the opportunity, and she took the opportunity. It was good for her.
Yeah.
So then, yeah, the other thing I was going to say about this time period was that she was worried about the second album. Artists are sometimes worried about their sophomore album, kind of called the sophomore slump.
Right.
And they're just worried about how their art or their music is going to be perceived after a successful album.
An interesting way I heard about a journalist that interviewed Michelle characterized it in a way that like you spend all your life writing all the songs for the first album, and then for the second album, you have to start from scratch in a short period of time, kind of thing. Like
I've heard that, like you have all your life to write your first album, and then 6 months to write your second album.
yes.
Like, and it is kind of like that.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. And I think all artists kind of go through that a little bit.
Well, the other thing it sort of intrigued me about this concept is I think we both know a lot of musicians now coming up, producers, musicians, artists, that are not really focused on the album. They're focused on the songs. It's kind of like a hip hop mentality of just put out tune after tune after tune after tune.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to me where we still have artists like Japanese Breakfast in this era that aren't doing that. Instead, they're focusing on albums. Like, I don't know. I'm just like, what's better? What's the way to do it? Like, I was starting to think like, should artists just be putting out tune after tune after tune and not, or should you think about doing an album? Because an album can also have like a cohesive statement within a collection of songs, right? Especially if you're a lyricist and there's like themes and things that you want to express.
Right.
Then a body of work, the album does it, you know. Or similarly, you could do it over like however many songs and just put out single after. I don't know if you have any thoughts about this. What do you think about that concept of just tune after tune versus albums? Like,
I mean, I don't know, a lot of thoughts.
Okay.
Like one thing that's interesting, it's a little bit like a sidestep.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's right in the same crux of what we're talking about. Because you have movies and then you have like TV shows. And it used to be that like movies were like, if you're on a TV show and you want to make it as a movie star, like that's the next big step.
Right.
But now it's like the opposite, where like you could be a movie star, but like a lot of movie stars are moving towards TV because it's in a serial, like episode by episode thing.
Yeah.
And in my head, I'm kind of comparing that to like episodes to like singles rather than a movie to an album.
Although also like that TV concept that you're talking about is a little bit different than like the old school way of TV, like ER or those or Sopranos kind of thing. Whereas like now it's almost a mini series, right? Where you have 10 episodes, but that's it. So it's almost like a really long movie, like opportunity for an actor. Kind of
exactly. So it's like instead of an actor acting all these parts and putting all this energy into a 2.5 hour movie, you get how many hours of one season? If it's 10 episodes long, an hour per episode, that's 10 hours of acting in front of the audience.
Right.
And so it's that many more opportunities to get across what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know if that makes sense to what we're talking about.
No, I've heard actors recently, it's very useful. I watched this roundtable discussion with these actors. One of the guys, Brian, forget his last name, he's in Succession, like he's the father figure in this HBO show called Succession kind of thing.
Oh, I don't know that show at all.
It's really good though. But he characterized it as like because normally it's like the 3-act structure in movies, act 1, 2, and 3. He said doing this show and doing TV is like one really long act 2 kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
And you get to explore. And and someone else around the table was like, like you're saying, you get to this time to explore the character versus like when you're doing a movie, you have these short moments.
You got to be somewhere. The end is coming up.
Yeah.
You got to show the audience, give them the story, give them the narrative. The narrative.
Yeah.
So kind of interesting.
So album wise, so do you think? Yeah. What do you?
I guess back to like singles, it kind of comes into like the digital age that we live in, and it's like as a marketing thing, it could be you want your name to be out there like every day or every week, not just drop an album once per year and there's one post on Instagram. You know, you want to be posting every week so you get, you know,
that's something
people need to connect to it, so you need to be in front of their face and being engaged with.
Yeah, that's something I thought about as well. Because, like, if the advice of music now is to be putting out content every day, kind of thing, and if you're a musician, to me, in my mind, it's like, why waste your time making like Instagram posts and TikTok videos when you could just make music? Because that is really your content. Yeah. But then the same aspect, though, is it going to be any good to just be pumping out song after song if you're not spending the time to like? That's
the fine line that musicians find themselves in today, because increasingly they have to be their own videographers and content creators,
label marketing,
alongside making your high quality original music.
Right.
So I mean, it's the plight of the artist. You know, has always been a little rough. And it's still rough today, I think. It's
just a new type of...
Yeah, just with new technology.
The same struggles are still there. The dynamics and the things you have to do are just different. But
well, I guess just to conclude on that statement, it's like, I know people become friends because, like, it's easy to become friends at school when you're young because you're having the same experience and you're in the same location, sharing the same experience with people every day, you know? And it's not like you saw one kid one day a year ago. How good of friends are you going to be with that one kid? But rather than these kids who you're hanging out with every day and sharing this experience, that's how you make friends. And it's like that with music too. If you're engaging with this music a lot, you're seeing the posts, you're going to be more willing to like care about them and care about the artist's story. So, you know, I think singles are a good way to go right now.
Yeah. But however, Japanese breakfast and a lot of the bands and artists we talk about on the show are not doing that, right? For some, like, and you know, we picking out these artists because we want to learn from them, and because their music's great. We want to hear where they're coming from, and I don't know. It's just a very strong theme that I've seen in all these artists. It's albums.
Yeah,
it's touring and albums. If there was two takeaways I would take away from all of these 70 plus episodes of Roots to Grooves, it's albums and touring. Like, those are the things to do.
But that is true, regardless of what we're talking about, whether it's you're more marketable as an artist to do singles or do albums. A lot of these artists we're talking about do go that extra mile to release a full body of work, which is an album. And they seem to really care about that and find it to be very important, regardless of what's going on in the music world. So that's interesting.
And I think I'm just juxtaposing that with the people that aren't really successful yet, that I know in person who are not doing that.
Right.
I was like, should the advice be, guys, you need to make an album, and then you need to go on tour? Like, fuck this social media, like, content everyday thing, whatever. Like, make an album and then go on tour. Like, I don't know.
I think it's a great investment. I think it's a great investment to do something like that. And then you know, come out with an album release and a tour, get your name out, make a big bombastic show, and then the rest of the year, 2 years, 3 years from that point, like singles as much as you can, and fill in the gaps. But then there's a lot of content for the artist or for the audience to go back to and really dig into. So they see these singles coming out, but then when they like, oh, I like this single, I like that single, this guy's really good, I'm going to go to his Spotify and look at the album. And then you listen to the album and there's a full body of work for that audience to listen to. And then that's when you really make that connection. Like they go from the singles to the album, and then, wow, now I'm all up in this artist's grill, like listening to his full album and stuff. And that's a fan now. That's huge. So that's like, you know, you talk business, you talk conversion rates, like consumers to money, to cash flow. And how much can you get? I don't know. I'm off the rails here, guys. Let me reel it in here. But we're talking like 2014 times. Where are we at?
Second album, 2017. Did that come out? The second album, Soft Sounds from Another Planet. Originally, here's what I heard. First album, Very cathartic, very much Michelle talking about her relationship with her mother. Second album, she wanted to do something different. She wanted to get away from that. Originally, she wanted to do some kind of like concept album around like the future or like robots or something like that. You know, so she wrote a couple of tracks that are in that vein, like I think Machinist was one of them. But then as she was working through this, she was like, she did one song and then she was like, oh, now I have to make like 10 more that are like that.
Within that theme.
Yeah, and then she was like, that doesn't, not really vibing with that, didn't really work, sort of thing. So she kind of ditched.
And I think she was capable of making it. She just like didn't feel like making that type of music right then.
Yeah.
Right?
Also, another thing that she thought was that, you know, she had just made this connection with listeners on the first album, kind of thing, and she was like, "What now? I'm just going to break that by not really being open and honest on the second album. I'm going to do some weird like robot concept album." I think that was the other thing she thought about, was just like, oh no, I should really let them. They've only just heard of me. You know, the second album is an opportunity to get them to know you even further, and it's like by not sort of like not catering to that, but not allowing that to happen, she felt was like kind of.
I think she wanted, because she got like the backlash and the critiques, you know, seeing people commenting and giving their opinions online about the album, whether they're good or bad. There was good and there was bad.
About the second album?
About the first album.
Okay. Yeah.
But then for the second album, she was like, she knew that experience, and she was like, well, now people are going to be talking about this or that.
Right.
So that's why she wanted to go with that robot concept, because she was like, I need something more like insular, if I can say that word, you know, as like a barrier, so I can like continue to make music and make art, but feel safe and not feel like I'm completely vulnerable and exposed.
Right.
But then she kind of realized that being exposed and vulnerable is connection with their audience.
Right. Yeah.
You know, so she recognized the value in that and decided to go back towards that.
Yeah.
And wrote the rest of the songs with that kind of in mind.
Cool. Yeah. We gave listeners a taste of this album when we opened up the show, Diving Woman. But we have this other track here. Should we play this? Roadhead.
Yeah, it's another good one.
You gave road on a turnpike exit, going
Roadhead by Japanese Breakfast from the second album. Soft Sounds from Another Planet. Science fiction concept album was what I was looking for. I said robot, future, tech. I was mangling it all up.
No, I think
science fiction.
I think you were in the ballpark.
I was in the ballpark. But yeah,
I heard something about robots too,
Right.
or metal,
Yeah,
something. We're there. We're on it.
Yeah, but she, like you say, didn't really sort of continue to make this a concept album so much. But
it is good. This is like my favorite one of hers. This is where I got into Japanese Breakfast, I think.
Okay.
Were these two tracks, the track that we opened up the show with, and this track that we just played. This whole album it's spacious and more expansive and more vibey.
Production quality is something I notice a lot lately, I think, because I'm listening to music on my headphones all the time. And I could hear this. I noticed this a lot, between albums with like artists that as they progress, production quality gets a bit better. Like, and on this second album, it's a little bit more of a rounded sound, whereas the first album didn't really have that kind of.
It's just a little bit more two-dimensional.
Yeah.
You know, if that's fair to say.
Yeah.
But it's still good stuff.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more, you could say lo-fi, if that makes everybody feel better about production.
I think it's just like, because if I'm listening to music in headphones, I really want it to like engulf me in like a vibe. And if it doesn't, it just feels like I'm listening to like a mono.
Yeah, it just feels kind of boring.
Yeah, exactly.
And people would call that a bad mix,
Yeah.
If it's boring to listen to, I suppose. Right. But whatever we're talking about, this second album is more quality.
Yeah.
As far as production, I think on every level. The writing's a little bit better. The vibe is a little bit better. Just everything in general is turned up a notch.
Yeah.
And firing on all cylinders.
Yeah.
I would recommend starting with this album if you want to get into Japanese Breakfast. I think it's really good.
Right.
So let's move on to the next thing that's in the future. I mean, I guess we just jump straight to Jubilee.
Jubilee, the most recent album.
Do we have anything? She was just touring in between.
Touring. She did do what was it? Some music for this video game, Sable.
Oh, that did come out 2021. So yeah, we could touch on that.
Yeah.
Because she was asked to supply the soundtrack to an indie game developer called Shedworks, I guess, and they the publisher for that is Raw Fury, and they had a video game called Sable.
Right.
And, I mean, that's pretty much all I got, but she did the soundtrack for it, and I guess it was pretty good.
Right.
But just a testament to the other things that she's doing. Like, we haven't really touched on any of her music videos, but she directs some of her music videos, like I touched on.
Yeah.
And then she's doing music for video games.
Yeah.
You touched on the book that she wrote. So this is a busy girl.
Yeah.
And she's basically being successful in all of her different little aspects of work that she does. And it's impressive.
Yeah, and Jubilee was supposed to come out a year before it did. I think summer 2020. And they pushed it back. Because she was asked, because she did the book, her first book, Crying in H Mart, which we talked about at the top of the show.
And I guess let me touch on that real quick, because we're talking in this time period. It's 2020. It's pandemic time. So she had some downtime, and she used that to get into this idea of writing a memoir, which turned into Crying in H Mart, which is basically about her Korean heritage in the wake of her mother's death.
Right.
Like kind of just discovering who her mother was and who she is and what the culture means and what part they play in all of that.
Yeah.
And it was released several months before Jubilee.
Right.
I know that. And it reached number 2 on the New York Times nonfiction bestseller list.
Yeah, and I think it was on the New York Times bestseller list overall for like 40 weeks or something like that.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I think she was number 2. The number 1 was like George Bush.
George Bush has a book out?
Apparently.
Wow, okay.
I don't know which
I have
one.
to check that out.
Yeah, I know.
And Barack Obama has also listed it as put it on his book list of books to check out.
That's amazing. I don't know how she's getting this credibility.
Publisher. She does have a publisher for this, I think the publisher, there was an auction for the rights for this book, and this publisher got it. and they've been really good about promoting it and putting it out there around the world. And I think one of the interesting things about this, though, is like because they pushed back Jubilee, the third album, from coming out, it basically coincided with her doing promotion for this book and promotion for the album, which is kind of juxtaposed because people said that Jubilee is the happy album, the happiest album that Japanese Breakfast have done. Intentionally, Michelle did it that way. She wanted to, she's like, I expressed all of that stuff. Now I want to go in a happy, positive direction for this album. But yeah, the weirdness was like she was doing all this PR and interviews for the book, which is still kind of about that sad, cathartic time, whilst doing PR and promotion for this album, which is about a positive.
So almost seeming kind of disparate.
Yeah, and that's when
themes.
she said it wasn't supposed to come out at the same time. That's COVID and all that happened. But also the other reason why she did the book is like she said that she thought she'd kind of like done this cathartic thing on the first two albums and realized she hadn't. She like needed a bit more, and that's kind of also why she wrote the book. And also to say the book was like what's not the word prefaced, but I'm forgetting the terminology of foreshadowed. No. She basically wrote some essays and articles for like various online publications before doing the book.
Drafts?
No, it's like actual published articles, like I think the New Yorker.
I'm still trying to think of the word you were thinking of.
Preface.
Predetermined. Preliminary.
Before, I don't know, whatever.
All right, we're lost. I cannot help you, sir.
If you're writing,
What's the word?
maybe the word I was thinking of is wrong to use in that context. Anyway, I don't know.
I think you were about to make up a word.
Yeah, but she wrote an article or an essay called "Crying in H Mart," and that precluded.
Like not secluded, not but came before.
Yeah, it came before. Not secondary. Preliminary.
Preface
Not
works, doesn't it?
I guess, but that's also in a book, a preface, right?
Preface synonym. I love the source. Preamble, prelude,
not
prologue,
No.
prolusion, introduction, forward.
Wow, no, man. This is, yes. It's going to bug us into the next 5 episodes. What is the
Prefix.
Prefixed.
Predetermined.
No. Never mind. Forget it.
Sorry, guys. We tried.
But yeah, so that was sort of like she'd done all that, in preparation for doing this book, and now it's been turned into a movie, and she's written the screenplay for it. I
didn't even know that.
Yeah, she's done a first draft. The film rights have already been bought by Orion Pictures, the home of Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Nice. And Face the Music?
And maybe, I don't know, they've done other stuff.
The sequel.
Yeah, she's written the screenplay and she's working on drafts for it. So she does, like you said, direct her music videos. I was like, wow, are they going to let her direct? I don't even know if she wants to direct it, but she's definitely writing the first draft of the screenplay.
No, that's awesome. I just keep hearing new stuff that she's involved in, and she just consistently is just sniping these things off. Like, write a book, I can do it. Make an album, I can do it.
Yeah,
I
think
cool.
She just wants to keep working. She likes working.
Well, yeah, she likes being an artist.
Yeah.
Like, I think she knows she's pretty, lucky or in a good kind of point of privilege to be living this life that she is.
Yeah.
And she's, using it as well as she can, and, using it as a way to look at herself as a reflection and be like, a cathartic kind of experience, like writing about her own experiences with her mother, with her culture, with herself. And she's just exploring her life and life in general. Yeah. So it's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Jubilee comes out.
Yeah. And interestingly, she says she has a home studio, but she said it's like mostly like MIDI instruments and stuff like that. And I think what she's sort of taken to doing writing wise is work a lot in MIDI for like the original ideas, and then turn those into instruments later. So she said, and I think we should play it in a little bit. Paprika, that song. She said started out, she was just in Ableton drawing like piano MIDI notes, and that's how that came together. And then when she went to the studio, she turned all of those piano parts into different analog instruments. Is the way she described it, kind of thing.
I wonder what that sounded like.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've thought about that often as well. It's like you could take acoustic guitar composition or piano thing, and then sort of translate that into different instruments.
Well, I mean, I know
yeah.
one of my favorite bands, The Strokes, does that. Like,
Oh, yeah.
A lot of songs will be started by being written on a keyboard, and then then they know, like Julian, the singer composer, knows the notes that are being played.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, then, but I want this in guitars.
Right.
So bass, you do this, you do the root. Guitar 1, you play these 2 notes. Guitar
Okay.
2, you play these 2 notes.
Oh, cool.
And we're all playing different notes, but when you play them together, it's it's an orchestra. And
That's
like
cool,
The,
yeah.
the notes that you're playing, the notes that you're playing, and the bass is playing equal a chord.
Yeah.
And those chords change during the different sections of music
Yeah.
as the chords change and the structure goes on. So it's very cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's a really cool thing to do, and it makes the music very interesting, and it feels like a puzzle piece that's put together well.
Yeah.
And you can see the image.
Yeah.
It feels cohesive and
Yeah.
powerful.
I know Nick Cave writes on piano as well.
Okay.
Like, he has this. I heard this story. He had his. I don't know if he still has it. He kind of has this like office setup where he like, and there's all that's in there is like a couch, like a coffee table, and a stand-up piano. And he just goes there every day and works 9 to 5 writing his songs in that environment, kind of thing. And then once he has songs, he gets the bad seeds. I
That's
guess,
crazy.
to play it. Yeah.
Just literally one non-MIDI piano.
Yeah. And I think I can't remember who said this on all of our episodes, but I think there was an episode where someone said something along the lines of like, a song is a song. It should be able to stand up by itself, no matter how it's interpreted.
Right.
So there's something to starting like in that way on the piano. It's like if it works on the piano, it's going to work with a band.
Right.
Right. So.
No, I think I love that sentiment.
Yeah.
I'm down with that, and I back it up 100%.
And I think that's the other thing about Michelle Zauner from Japanese Breakfast. She had piano lessons when she was younger, I think from 5 years old. And she has sort of described about the piano as like it's the only instrument that she knows all the notes and the key and kind of like what to do on it, sort of thing. But she is a guitarist, and she's played guitar for a long time throughout the years, I think throughout her first bands as well. But she didn't learn about the guitar, and she kind of liked that fact of being oblivious about music theory and stuff like that. But then before doing this album, she's sort of gone back and taken piano lessons, music theory lessons, and guitar lessons to sort of learn a bit more about what she's doing, kind of thing. And I think it's like she said she's still not, doesn't know everything about it, and it is for me, I think it's like a tough thing. I was like looking into it recently. I'm thinking about learning. I don't know, using one of these apps to like learn music theory, like on piano or bass guitar or whatever, because it's something I'm like feel like I need to know as well, like or it would help me be less stuck in trying to make music if I knew that stuff. But then also I don't know, maybe it's better to be oblivious, but at the same time also it seems very in depth, right? It's not like you just learn music theory and then you're done. I can move on with my life. It's like there's no end to it. It seems like, right? It's like complex.
No, yeah.
Like, yeah.
No, I mean it's like it becomes like a way of life type of thing. Like you're a monk. It's like I'm gonna practice this forever.
All the scales and And then there's different modes and all this weird stuff.
I mean, music's not a finite binary thing that you can master or not. Like it's not one or the other.
Well, I think the interesting thing, because I think I've said this before as well. I feel like music is 10% skill and knowledge and 90% soul. You know, because you can be the shittiest guitarist in the world, but if you put 90% of soul into it, no one gives a shit.
Yeah.
Like, you can play 2 chords, but if you're like doing something interesting,
There's literally 2 chord songs out there that were hits. You know, "Achy Breaky Heart."
right?
You know,
2 chords and the truth. That's a saying. 3 chords and the truth.
really?
Yeah.
Oh, I never heard that.
We've said it a couple of times. On this. We've had 2 artists that have mentioned this.
I'll go back and watch those.
Yeah,
episodes.
but we don't rewatch these episodes. So. Yeah. So.
But
anyway.
Jubilee, it's a
Yeah.
big splash of a record. It's just like a little bit of a different vibe.
Yeah.
It's like a little bit less 90s influence, a little less grungy post-punk. It's a little bit, it feels a little bit more modern, contemporary, a little more poppy. Poppy is like, it sounds like a bad word, but I don't want to make it, no negative connotations, but it just feels a little cleaner and brighter.
Right.
Good vocals, good melodies, you know, like some of the best I've heard, you know, from Japanese Breakfast, but, you know, nice evocative contrast. The lyrics are poetic and good writing. The instrumentals are just really good. It's a stunning body of work.
Should we play?
We should definitely play one. I was just wondering which one, because I think that intro track is good.
We originally were going to play, Be Sweet.
Oh,
I think you wanted to play, but I wanted to also hear Paprika because of that. It started off with being written as piano and then turned into instruments. So I'm just like, with that knowledge, I'm interested to see how it came out. Kind of.
I think it's more interesting to listen to that intro song Paprika as a, like, for production's sake.
Okay.
And for like studying it.
Okay.
And like listening to it, it's interesting, and the vibe is interesting.
Yeah.
The second track though, I think is just like a more fun bop.
Oh, Be Sweet.
Yeah, Be Sweet.
Okay.
It's just more fun and vibey.
Well, which one do you want to? We're not ending the show just yet. We're gonna play a track, talk a little bit more, and then end it. So, which one would you want to end the show on?
In order, let's go narrative style like we do on Roots to Grooves. 1 and 2. We'll start with Paprika right now. I'm down.
Okay. All right.
The city came slowly. I awoke from dreams of untying a great knot and unraveled like a braid into what seemed were thousands of separate strands of fishing line attached to course behavior flowed. A calm eater, what else is here? How's it feel to be at the center of magic, to linger in tones and words? I opened the floodgates and found no water, no current, no river, no road. How's it feel to stand at the heart of your powers, to captivate every heart, projecting your visions to strangers who feel it, who listen, to linger on every word? Oh, it's a rush. Oh, it's a But alone it feels like dying. All alone I feel so low. I want my friend to come to clear
Paprika from Jubilee, Japanese Breakfast, their third album. I did actually see that track. They performed that on Saturday Night Live.
Oh, that's the one you saw?
Yeah, well, she did two, and that one she had a big gong on stage, and for those big hits, she was like singing, and then for the big hits, she was just like,
Bang.
on the gong.
Bang a gong.
Bang a gong. Yeah, you said, so you mentioned something about listening to that track for like production and that. What specifically caught your ear in that, or
I mean, like for example, the horns.
Yeah.
I hadn't heard that in Japanese Breakfast.
Oh yeah, yeah. They
Before.
haven't done that yet. Yeah,
So I just think it was just an obvious step up as far as the bombastic energy. You know, they just, I feel like she went in a little bit different direction by doing something a little bit more outlandish, like having horns, and not only that, but like not just like a kind of an indie rock drum beat. That's so a lot of those are like kind of simple, like just like a simple beat.
that's a little bit more.
This one's more like the kind of the marching drums.
Yeah. It's like orchestral percussion.
Yeah, so that whole feels more like you're watching like a band, like an orchestra band, play this song and present this song as the opening track, rather than, ooh, I'm listening to an indie rock band in New York City at midnight.
Right.
Yeah. So it's like a whole different presentation.
Yeah.
And then they do things like that throughout the album, I think. And they're like different songs are a little bit like different characters, and they have different vibes and energies. Kind of like it's a Swiss Army knife of an album.
Right.
Different tools, different things coming out at the different points.
Yeah. Another name we haven't mentioned yet throughout this episode is Craig Hendricks. She's her producer, who's worked on all of the albums. And I bring this up because when she was doing this album or starting to write it, she said she sort of distanced herself from him initially. I think because she kind of wanted to do something a bit different, and so she needed to kind of go out there and explore different directions, approaches, kind of thing. But then she ended up coming back. It wasn't like he was fired or they broke up. I think she just needed to sort of have that, instead of working from scratch with him in the studio, she needed to create some other ideas first, structure things, prepare things a little bit more differently, and then go back into the studio with him, kind of thing. Because she said he is kind of integral to her recording process. He said he's a multi-instrumentalist, and so Michelle says that he can play a lot of things better than she can. So if she's struggling with a part, she was like, here, you record it. And he'll get it down there, sort of thing. But I just wanted to bring him up. Craig Hendricks, producer of the album, and also George Albrecht is still mixing the albums, and he mixed this album. And she said he took some liberties by adding some percussion to one of the tracks when he was mixing it, because that's usually a no-no. You don't want the mixing engineer to be adding elements.
Right.
But she said it made the song sound a lot better.
Yeah, put some guitar on your first track.
Yeah,
sounds pretty cool.
Or re-recorded your vocals, man. But yeah, no. So.
No, very good. And then just to touch on that, live, and by the way, they have come up to KEXP here in Seattle and done a live in their listening space or whatever they call it. Very good show. I watched that.
And also Little Dragon again. I just want to say it's because they did play across the street from the studio right down here back in the day.
Right here in Pioneer Square?
Upstream, when Upstream Music Festival happened here, KEXP had the space downstairs temporarily, and they had turned it into a live performance space. It was before Signl was in the studio.
Oh, that's right. It was old studio.
Yeah. But I just want to say Little Dragon played it because I mentioned them earlier.
Jay's just up here casually watching. It's yes.
No. Anyway, we're going to have some bands in here. So
stay tuned.
We're working on it. Yeah.
Stay tuned, my good friends. And then alternatively, I did mention, because they were talking about it while I was watching that KEXP performance. And I think the drummer does some production or something.
Well,
I'm
I
not sure if
know-
it's the same guy that you just mentioned, but
I know Craig Hendricks. I don't know if he still tours with the band. He might do, but yeah, early in the days he was on stage with them.
okay.
He like used
that-
the Yamaha drum pad to like he basically like take the samples from the album and put them on the pads and then perform that live.
Got you.
But he can also play other instruments, which Michelle has said has been really helpful in a band to have a multi-instrumentalist that can,
Right. Just kind of utility,
Yeah,
fill
yeah.
in those gaps.
yeah. So he might still be playing live, I think. Yeah.
So cool. And then also, I think it was a bass player or guitarist from her previous band. The what was the band called?
Little Big League.
Yeah, Little Big League. So he was playing with Little Big League, and then I think he was going to get another. He was in another band, and I'm trying to remember the interview. And Michelle said that he was going to be in another band that was going to be Jimmy Fallon big, like referencing like they were going to go on Jimmy Fallon.
Yeah.
And so they had a lot of, hype about him or whatever.
Yeah.
A lot of clout. But a turn of events, and he ended up coming back to work with Michelle in Japanese Breakfast.
The bass player?
I don't know which instrument.
Okay. What was his, do you know his name? No.
No, I'm just saying a guy in the band who they play live with was from Little Big League, and then additionally another instrument is her husband, as we mentioned previously.
Right. Yeah, Peter played bass, or I think, or
He
yeah,
played bass, yeah.
like originally, like on the first when she was doing the first album, and I think he still plays now with them as well. And yeah, she married him 2 weeks before her mother passed away. And
Right. Oh, yeah.
she actually, I forgot to say, on the second album, she wrote a song kind of in ode to him called Till Death. And yeah, I also want to confirm that, yes, the original bass player from Little Big League does play in Japanese Breakfast live
Nice.
right now. And that was interesting because I think he left Little Big League. So the band was kind of on the verge anyway. And then she had to leave for family reasons. And he ends up coming back.
So it's
Now
meant
he's-
to be.
Yeah.
So
That's cool.
apparently she met him at a karaoke bar called 12 Steps Down.
Yeah, the bass player. I want to say his name, Devon Craig.
Oh, no, I was talking about, the husband's Peter, right?
Yeah, Peter, his husband. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, yeah, okay. That's who I was talking about.
Okay.
And he was singing Billy Joel's Scenes from an Italian Restaurant
Interesting.
upon when she caught sight of him.
I'm not sure if I've heard that song. Scenes from an Italian restaurant?
I feel like both of us would recognize it if we
Maybe.
heard it.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. If
Well,
it's a
I don't-
karaoke
I-
tune, yeah.
It's Billy Joel.
Piano Man. That's his main one, I know.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I bet we'd recognize that. We'll listen to it after we stop recording.
Right.
Yeah. And anyway, that brings us up to date.
Yeah.
Jubilee has been released in 2021.
Yep.
I'm sure she's working on a movie or a book or a video game or more music. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of really great content from this woman into the future.
Well, they're on tour right now, all through July, all through till the end
When do
of
they
the
come?
year.
When do they come to Seattle, Jay?
I think they've already played here, actually.
Damn it.
They left. But they're all over the place. Des Moines, Iowa. They are going to be in Chicago. They're going to be in Canada. They're going to be in Portland, Hawaii, Japan. She's playing in, I want to get this name right, in South Korea, Incheon. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Incheon.
I'm not sure either.
Oh, no. There you go. Seattle, August 14th.
There it is.
Day in, day out.
Nice.
Playing there. They're playing there. Yeah.
All right. Might have
That's
to make
all we
an
care
appearance.
about. You know, we only care about the Seattle date.
Yeah. Local.
Yeah.
Keep it local, folks.
Yeah.
That is all I got on Japanese Breakfast. I think this is a cool indie rock band.
Yeah.
Got good stuff coming out. Listen to the second album.
Yeah.
I would suggest starting there.
All the albums are good. Yeah. Probably maybe start on the second one, and third one for me is very different than the first one.
Yeah,
It's like you got to be in a different mood, I think, to like.
I'd go second album, then first album, then third album.
Okay.
But I mean, you do you, because You know, you guys are all special people with your own vibes. Let us know what you guys like to do.
Yeah.
Unless you got anything else, Jay.
All good.
Japanese breakfast. If you guys got any helpful tips, comments, concerns, hit us up at the email, Jay.
Roots to Grooves at signalradio.com. That's SIGNL radio.com.
Tell the men I'm coming. Tell them count the days. I can feel the night passing by like a mistake waiting for me. Caught up in my feelings. Overthink the truth. Fantasize you left me behind, and I'm turned back running for you. Make it up to me, you know it's better. Make it up to me, you know it's better. Be sweet to me, baby. I wanna believe in you. I wanna believe. Be sweet to me, baby. I wanna believe in you. I wanna believe in something. So come and get your woman. Pacify her rage. Take the time to undo your lies. Make it up once more, this feeling. Recognize your mistakes, and I let you back in. Realize not too late. Love you always. Make it up to me, you know it's better. Make it up to me, you know it's better. Be sweet to me, baby. I wanna believe in you. I wanna believe. Be sweet to me, baby. I wanna believe in you. I wanna believe in something. Be sweet to me, baby. I wanna believe in you. I wanna believe. Be sweet to me, baby. I wanna believe in you. I wanna believe in something.
Roots to Grooves is a production of Signal Radio. For more music and independent culture, visit signalradio.com. That's SIGNL radio.com.